to add in has secure password and then run the model again.
Yep.
And it should all pass.
Yeah, let's see it.
Now, I'm that should be the whole feature test, right? Works? The whole feature test now works? Because I'm still getting...
I kind of want to see like what you're getting to before I say like, oh yeah.
Did I share it correctly? I think I did.
I can kind of see. Can you make it bigger though?
Sorry, let me try that again. Desktop 3. Okay. And you want me to make it bigger?
Yeah, just the terminal. Got these squinty eyes. Okay, cool. So expected to find welcome fun bucket in register as a user. Okay, got you. So it looks like you just don't have the flash message.
But I actually had it in there. So right here, create.
Yup. But do you have, are you displaying the flash like in your application.html.erb or in this view, in the welcome view, like doing the flash.each and then?
Oh, that's just dumb, Connor. All right.
You're all good. That's I feel like y'all have probably only used Flash pretty sparingly, but yeah, you've got to like tell some view to, iterate over that hash and display it.
Now I'm supposed to be at welcome. So welcome index. So then I need to add that in there. Yeah. I don't remember that one. It's Flash. Something like that, flash message.
Something like that, but it's like you have to treat the flash as like as it's like a hash that you're iterating over, so that we always split it up into a key and a value, and the key is going to be the type of flash. So in this case, it'll be success, and we can like use that for styling purposes, and then the message is going to be the value, and then we actually display the value like to the user.
Okay.
I would just look this up though, like instead of like trying to write it out from memory.
That's what I'm doing. I'm going to the past project to pull it, but that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Oh, that was it. Okay. Shame on me. Thank you very much.
Don't feel any shame. It's okay to come and get some help here and there.
All right. Thank you very much.
For sure. I'll see you later, Connor.
All right, later.
Hey Tim. Actually, I think the hell just happened here. I was just getting error messages that weren't in the thing.
Okay. Do you want to share?
Yes, please. So I just created the user params. Yeah, I just finished creating the user params, but nowhere in the assignment does it say that we should be getting this error, but I've been getting it for a little while now.
Yep. So why don't you show me the new form on the left? So we'll keep the test on the right, and then show me the new user, like the new .html.erb on the left window.
New HTML ERB.
Cool. Yes, I think this is just a capybara like issue where it's probably like updated It's probably like updated like the way that you're going to access the syntax here. So why don't you change fill in username on the right to instead of being a symbol, let's make it a string. Yeah, and then we want to get that colon out of there. Exactly. All right, so let's run it and see if we get, now we want the error to be like disabled field password, because that'll tell us that it found the username if that's the case, but we might not get it. Okay, so it's still not able to find that. Current path equals users new, okay.
So when I get this error, I've seen it once before. Does this mean something's wrong with the code, or something's wrong with the way I? Mhm.
Usually it's because the way that you're trying to grab the field, like Capybara can't find a field that has that name. But let's try it with, let's inspect this page element. So let's save an open page on 20. Okay, so that tells me that this form is actually like empty because I'm not seeing anything here. So that tells me that like somehow in your routes, like
I just switched this recently, switched the order of this recently because I don't know. I was trying different things to try and fix this capybara thing.
Yeah.
Should I switch it
Okay.
back?
Click on register as a user. So then it goes to users new. Yeah, so that tells me that like somehow the page that you're trying to render that we were just on, actually the routes look good. So the routes look fine, but the new is not matching up somehow. So let's look at where that new.html.erb view is. Okay, and where does that live? Like, what's the path there?
The view, I put it in users.
Cool. That's where I would expect it to be. And then let's look at the new in the users controller. Yeah, that looks okay. Can we put a pry in the top of this new.html.erb? Nah, so let's put it not in, well, actually, yeah, let's put it there first. Let's just make sure that this gets hit first. Cool, exit. All right, so now let's put a pry in the view.
Oops. Any place in particular?
Let's take the one that's in the controller out, and then let's put it at the top here.
Top?
Yep.
What the heck? Oh, I hate when it does this.
It's got to be in, yeah, it's got to be inside the, yeah, those guys. All right, let's see if this gets hit. I think it hopefully should. Okay, cool. So we're getting hit. Oh, I see what's happening. All right, so do you see on that line below the pry?
Yeah.
A form tag? That needs to be form tag equal, because you need to show the form. Like, so like this is like, you actually want that lobster claw to have the equals sign after it instead of not having it, because it's like part of, with forms, we're not like iterating on something here. We're actually like trying to show this form, and it won't show any of it if we don't show this top line.
Damn it. This would have, if this was an independent challenge, this would have eaten up like an hour.
Yeah. So that's something, but hey, that's why we practice, right? Now you've got some practice here where, what did I do to break down this problem? I was like, all right, let me go to the routes. Like, let me just like save an open page. I don't see a form there. So
Right.
somehow the form is not showing up on the page. That tells me, because what I expected is I was like, all right, I'll see the form and the element will be something different. But then when I didn't see the form, I'm like, all right, so clearly this form is not being rendered the way that we thought. So I checked the route, I checked the controller action. I went through the steps, right? It hits the
Right.
router, it goes to the controller action, it hits the view. And then I once we got to the view, I was able to be like, okay, like if it's hitting the view, then it's hitting the correct file, and we're just not like our syntax is off. We're not rendering it properly.
That makes sense. Okay, that's huge. All right. So kind of MVC through,
Yep.
test
Exactly.
MVC through. Okay. And then just one last thing about naming for tests.
Yep.
I noticed that naming for tests is usually CRUD as well.
Yep.
But I didn't know what to name this first this test.
Yeah. You can, I think registration spec is just fine because that's exactly like what's happening here, but you could put registration spec is just fine. I would say the other thing that you could do is like describe the feature that you're working on. So you could say user can register username and password spec.rb. Like you could be like that that thorough if you wanted, but I think registration spec covers it, to be honest.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
cool. Thank you very much. How do I unshare this? There we go. All right, thanks, Tim. Bye-bye.
Yeah, for sure. See ya.
Hey, Tim.
Hey, what's up, Zach?
Kind of going off his last question, I wasn't like I just named this index spec.rb since it didn't really say anything specific.
Yep.
But it was going first to that welcome spec like route. So yeah, can you explain, like, I mean, if we're running, I thought that like your spec names had to tie to some controller action. Like
they don't. Yeah, so they don't, but that's like a convention. Like if we're if we're like just gonna test one action, it's just easier to name it like index spec or show spec or whatever it is. But that's not actually like doing anything under the hood. It's just like one of our features that we're trying to test. So like you can name your feature tests kind of like as thoroughly as you want them. Like it could be like user can register with username and password spec.rb. Like that can be like the name of a feature test if you want, because like it's kind of like the idea is you can be as thorough as you want to be. Generally, like I like what John put. He put registration spec, so it's smaller on the file name, and then all of that information about like what's happening in the future can go in those describes, right? And that can be like where we get a little bit more thorough about how we explain what's happening.
Cool, that makes sense. I have a couple like smaller questions, I guess. Like as far as like controllers, like in the project, like there were a couple minor differences between different like the create and update parameters. So like I guess I haven't really gotten the rundown as to like what a strong param should look like. In some of my own research, I saw that there's a permit and a require. What's the difference between those two?
Yep. So require is basically saying like, hey, like usually we'll use require for like nested params. So we'll be like requiring that first key value pair to be, or that first key, I should say, to be something like user or something like that. So it's like, okay, like we're nesting some params. These params are going to come in like slightly nested. So let's require that it's that one of them is this specific key. And then for the next set of key value pairs, you can think of it as like the nested hash. Like, all right, we have to require this key, which points to another hash as the value. And then for this next hash that is the value, like let's permit only these specific params as keys from there.
Okay. So require is usually used on like the outer of a nested param.
Yeah.
And then permit is in the inner. I didn't know if that had anything to do with like like models and how you like you like assert different things, like validate presence of. I didn't know if it had a similar kind of action to that or not.
Not really. Like, there's definitely a way to test the user, like, or the params, but like generally we don't like write specific tests for controllers, just because like controllers are so linked to other parts of our application that generally a feature test will be like testing what is happening in our controller as part of whatever that feature test is. It's like the controller is so central to other parts of our location that testing it in isolation almost like doesn't make as much sense as testing it as an integration test with the parts that it like generally is relying on, which is like the model and the view in the router. So that's that's the testing idea behind that. And yeah, usually you just want to, whatever action you're going to be using the strong params in, so whatever action you call user params in, that's basically good enough of a test as long as you're testing that you can get both params or multiple params out of that hash. Like that is good, and that is like a good test. As long and generally we wouldn't have strong params that are not accessed in an action. So as long as you're hitting that action using those strong params and then displaying a view and then testing what's in the view, you're basically testing as part of that test, you're testing that the params work as well.
Okay, cool. And then I guess last thing, I've been using Control P a lot more, which is super helpful. I don't really, or Command P, I should say, to like kind of cycle through what I already have existing. What's the hotkey to like create a new, like navigate and create a new folder and to create a new file? Like I've been going to the tree for that, and it's like I bet there's a quicker, easier way to do that.
I go to the tree too. So I go to the tree and then arrow up and down to like
How do
where
you
I
go
need
to the
be.
tree with your keyboard?
Oh, Command backslash. So the one that's under the delete button. So
Right.
you command backslash, that toggles it. So that'll,
Well, yeah.
if it's open, it'll be.
Oh, okay.
But then you
I
get,
see.
yeah. Then you, if you close it and then open it real quick, once it opens back up, you can up and down arrow in the tree view. And so
Yeah,
that's
I
what
see
I
that
usually
now.
do.
Cool. And then I think it's A
Yep.
to create a new file. What's a new folder?
Shift A.
Shift A. Oh, okay. Oh, nice. Cool.
And then
I think that's-
if you accidentally do the wrong one and you're like, oh shit, like I don't want to be creating a file, you just escape will get you out of that like little bar that is allowing you to type in.
Right.
Yep.
Cool. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Bye.
See ya. What's up, Garrett?
So I had a question about the memoization.
Yeah.
Was the end. So I actually tried using this in my project for the default picture. And what I found was it seemed like whenever there's a field for a user to fill out and they choose to not enter anything into that field, those user fields will default to an empty string as opposed to nil.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just kind of the behavior of an empty form field?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And memoization is always checking for nil and not like an empty string.
Basically, yeah, exactly. Like it's checking with memoization, whatever instance variable or variable you're memoizing on, it's basically checking that variable first. And as long as that variable is not nil, then it uses that value. If it is nil, then it runs the right side of the memoization to like produce a value.
So like in the project, what I ended up doing was I had basically I couldn't use memoization. Instead, I ended up using like an if statement to basically be like if equals empty string.
Yeah.
So I would imagine with form fields, that would typically be the approach we'll take in general, as opposed to using memoization, because those form fields won't actually ever equal nil.
Yeah, I would argue that like a better way to approach the forms that are empty is like if you expect that value to be filled out on like the controller side or on the database side, then you basically don't want to allow a user to even make that request without that field being filled out. And you can use, like, there's a couple of things that you can use on a form to like make sure that that a field is required and that a field has a value that's not an empty string, so that then a pop-up message like tells the user, hey, this field didn't get filled out, we're not even going to send this form request without it.
Okay, I think for the specific use case I was talking about, they wanted us to basically not make the field required, but instead have like a default image that appears if they don't. So in this case, I was using like a before save and then basically creating a method that created a default image to appear. But I see what you're saying, where like in cases where you typically want a particular field to be filled out, just require it and then throw a flash message, rather than having some sort of like default thing, because what's the point of having
exactly. So I think both scenarios are valid depending on the context of like what you want to happen. My like kind of thought is like, I would rather not create a complex logic for like a form field if I don't have to, and I can just tell the user like right at the point where they forget it, like, hey, put a value in here. Whereas the other, like, you might say like, hey, we don't want to require a user to upload an image if they don't want to. So that in that case, it's actually better to do the before save thing to give it a default image in that case, because part of our like user experience, we don't want to require a user to like give us an image. We'll give them a default avatar and like let them continue using our application. So that in that case, like, this is, you can see like the difference in context. It's like, okay, you didn't put down a password, I'm going to stop you right there. But if you didn't add an image, like, continue and we will take care of that.
Yeah, a lot of it seems to definitely depend on the kind of user experience you want to provide. And like as a user, it's like, it's definitely annoying when they don't let you like complete a form because you don't fill out something that you're looking at it like, this is totally not necessary. Why do I have to fill this out?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. What's up, Will?
Hey, I was listening on that conversation as well, so it was helpful. I'm sitting here thinking of like kind of like how I've been on Facebook forever, but I presume like, you know, when you create a user account, it has sort of that sort of shadow profile picture that just shows like an empty head.
Yep.
Is that how you guys picture this working? Like maybe like when you create a new user, it automatically creates an image of like something like that, and then just gives you an option to edit or add a profile.
Exactly.
Photo?
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. So you'd almost like pre-populate the form with that default image, and then allow them to override it if they want.
Yeah, well, so I want to say you'll pre-populate the showing of a default image if the user doesn't provide you an image. So we wouldn't pre-populate the form with our image. We would simply like give them the option and like allow them to not put it, and then we'll take care of it on our end of how we display a default. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The question I had related to the project here, the whatever we're doing, exercise. I just, you know, I was kind of going along on my own. I may have missed something, just want to make sure. But so after we create this, well, we try and create this user, and it redirects us to basically the welcome index page.
Yep.
Was I supposed to have some flash? I don't have any logic to display the flash message anywhere. It looks like it's redirecting us to the page where we have the register as a user button.
Mm-hmm.
So they're supposed to be on the same page, or did I miss something?
Yeah, so this is like something that was kind of missing, but I like didn't update it because I just wanted y'all to like go probably like run into this problem and make a decision. I would always put the flash in application.html.erb just because like to me, like that's where like I want a flash to be, so that anytime a flash is there, we're showing it no matter what, and I don't have to like think about it on a per view basis. But yeah, that's not included in the lesson plan, so you've got to go like do that flash.each and iterate and show the message somewhere. Like you could put it in welcome. I would put it in application.html.erb.
Okay. Well, I I also was like, it just seems weird that this welcome page is going to say welcome user X and then has a button to register as a user on the same page.
Totally. So that's like kind of like later on, and I don't even know if we get to. I don't think we get to it in this lesson, where you'll have an if statement that checks like, hey, is there a current user? If there is, display log out. If there isn't, and no one's there, then display log in and register a user. But we're just not there yet.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Thank
Yep.
you.
For sure. Good questions there. What's up, Eduardo?
Hey, Tim.
Hey.
I got to the point in the authentication lesson where I'm workshopping creating a test to log out a user, and I'm just wondering exactly how to do that.
Yeah.
I have already set up my test. I think my test is good. It's not passing. I've set up a route. I think I've set it up correctly, but I can share my screen if that would be useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Do that.
Cool. And I'll definitely have to make things bigger because got a big screen.
Cool.
So my logout basically has all the instructions to log in.
Wait, Eduardo, let me stop you. Can you make it like even like way bigger?
Oh yeah, totally. Let's see. How do I mean, I could just make it.
Just like a little bit more. Sorry.
There we go.
All right,
no worries.
That's pretty good.
Is that good? Okay.
Yeah.
So in my test, so I have all the things to log in a user.
Yep.
And then I should be able to click a logout button now, and that works. I don't know whether or not I want to flash a message. So there, I did include this, like a see you later. And then it'll have the reverse. So now it won't be able to see log out, but it'll be able to see register as a user, and I already have an account.
Yeah, I like that. This like makes perfect sense to me.
Okay. So I have this link here from the lesson. It didn't have a route and it didn't have a method. I guess it defaults to get. So I gave it a route. I'm not sure if it's exactly the right one, and a method. I wasn't sure if, because this would technically be deleting the current session.
Yeah, I think this to me like makes perfect sense. Like you're deleting. Well, so generally when we delete a resource, and in this case, we're not going to delete a resource for the user. We're going to delete a session. So we're not deleting like something that is in our database. So this, I like where your head's at, and I wouldn't say, I mean, technically it's wrong, but I think it's like a good thought. You know what I mean? Like to be thinking,
because there's no resource.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I would say that this would rather be a get, and then within that get, what you want to do is basically like you want to destroy the session.
Right. Okay, so I've got that now. So get, and that makes sense because we're not dealing with the resource in the database.
Yeah.
So I've set that to sessions destroy, and then this is where I'm having a problem in my sessions destroys. I don't really know what to do.
Totally.
I know I have a current user. I know I don't want to have a current user after I click that button.
Totally.
I want to flash a message and redirect to the home page.
Yep. So let's look at your current user method.
Right, in application controller, here we go.
Cool. Okay, so what does this depend on? Like if we think about what it actually is looking for, like what do you think you could do to make this method basically run differently?
Right. Good question. So let's see. It finds a user based on the session ID if there is a session that has that user ID.
Yep.
And then it memoizes it so it doesn't have to run in the future.
Yep.
So I want to find a way to get rid of it.
Yeah. what do you need to get rid of to make sure that this doesn't run?
Probably an if else statement.
Well, you already have this guard statement as part of it.
Right.
So how does that, how do you make something, how do you make the guard statement like basically tell it, oh, nope, this actually this is not true, so don't run this.
I could add another guard statement in the front to return something else in another case.
Yep, you could. But I would say that that's like slightly redundant because I think you have everything you need here.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, it's not going to have, or I don't want it to have a user ID
Exactly.
in the session.
Yep. That's where I want you to think about, like, okay, before this like gets run, like, what do I need to do here? And that's what you want. You basically don't want a session the next time that this method gets hit.
So even in my session controller, it gets hit right here when I call it.
Yeah, but but like, I'll just say like that part of it, like that line, you don't necessarily need.
I see this line here.
Yeah.
18.
Yep. Because basically what you want to do here in destroy is you want to destroy the session. So you want to say like, okay, how do I destroy the session so that the next time when I redirect to the index or to the welcome page, like it's gonna run the current user, it's gonna run the current user method, right? And there are two values that I need to make sure are not there anymore.
Right. Okay. This is how do I get rid of this value? Do I set it equal to nil or?
Yeah, I love that. Yes, yep,
right.
that is correct. And then there's one other thing you have to do. So let's see if we can hit this pry in that sessions controller.
Oh, I add a pry in my session controller.
Yeah, in that destroy method where I think you had it already, but yeah.
I did, and then I got rid of it. Oh. Terminal. Sorry, I've got to make this.
You're all good.
Bigger as well. And then let me run that test. So I'm here.
Yeah. So at this point, I would check the two values because remember those values are in application controller. So you still have access to them in these child controllers because everything everything basically relies on that. Cool. So what else do you have besides the method call? Because the method call is like slightly less, what do I want to say? The method call is not as helpful in this controller, but we do have access, to the session and then to one other thing that we can like mess with. All right, so this shows you the object when you call just session, but when you give it the key, it'll give you, the value.
Okay, so I have access to that session user ID. And one other thing I have access to.
Yeah, and the hint is it's within the current user method.
Within the current user method. Oh, at current user?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So that's the other thing that we want to get rid of before the next request happens, which is going to happen on that redirect line.
Right. Okay. So I want to set at current user to nil somehow and at session user ID to nil to log out.
Yeah. Yep, you're right there. And the only thing I would correct there is it's not at session user ID. It's just session user ID. But yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Sorry, that's what that's what I meant. So this will need to be nil and this will need to be nil.
Exactly.
And I can do that through my session control, my destroy here.
Well, yeah, you hit the pry in here, right? So anything you can do in the
Right.
pry, you can do in here, and I would try it out in the pry.
Okay, so let's just do at session equals nil. And there's not like a destroy method or something that I should be using instead.
I think that this is like pretty clear, but there's like another way you could do it, but I think that this is just fine.
All right. So now that is nil and that's nil.
Yeah, and so
Which-
now what I would do is I'd run my method now, because remember that method has some logic in it that is like slightly different. Yeah.
And now my method returns nil.
Yep.
Okay,
Cool.
great. I think I can take those 2 steps and add those to my destroy method.
Yeah.
Okay. Then one problem I foresee is now I don't know the user. Should I just not flash a message that says goodbye, fellow user?
Well, you could still, the first thing you could do is the thing you were doing on line 18, right? You could grab the current user the way that you did on line 18, then do your destruction, then you still have the local variable right there that you can like use to flash the message.
Okay, I see. And is this the like regular Railsy way of getting rid of something, getting rid of a session?
Yeah, so for the at current user, setting that to nil, definitely. And then session user ID, sometimes like you'll see like either people will be setting it to nil or they'll just be destroying the key value pair. So it'll be like session.delete user ID. So, but either way is fine. So at that point, there's no key called user ID and that will return nil.
I see.
Yep. So, but either way are like, there's not like a, this way is right and this way is wrong. It's kind of like you can do it either way.
Okay, awesome. I think that definitely helps.
Cool.
A bunch. So yeah, thank you so much for that.
Sure, for sure.
Cool. All right. See ya.
See ya. Hey, John. You're muted right now, John, so I can't hear what you're saying.
Crap. So I got to this, and so I put in the flash message.
Yep.
And basically the create button's not working. I did a save and open page from the test. I put it here, and then I manually filled in the username and password and pressed the create user.
Yep.
And basically nothing happened. So
Gotcha.
I went to my routes and I saw that I have my create method and it is a post.
Yep.
Then I went to my controller to make sure I had floating meeting controllers. Yep. Went to controller, made sure I had it, had the flash message, which I do. And then I went to the view, which I didn't get much from.
Okay, so a couple of things. Let's look at this. Expected to find text, welcome, fun bucket in, register as user. Okay, so you're getting to this. Yeah, so the test that is actually failing is this top one, right? Because it's on 25. So it's not this bottom one.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
25.
sorry. I was
Yeah.
writing that out while, yeah.
You're good. So I think what's happening is you're just not displaying your flash. So you've assigned the flash, but you haven't told any of your views how to iterate on the flash and display the flash. Does that make sense? Like, remember how you have to put that like flash.each do type message and then display the message in like, you can do that in any view, but generally a good place to put it is the application controller or application.html.erb, I should say.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. I just thought if you follow the instructions, everything works. So yeah, completely forgot about that.
Yep, no, it's all good. That's something that like a couple of y'all have run into, and I didn't update because I kind of want you to have to deal with it. Sorry.
Got it. I will do it. All right. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, for sure.
Bye.
What's up, Connor?
Yeah, gotta turn on my mic. So I got down to the workshop lesson, and I just wanted to check and make sure this is the most effective method to actually destroying a session.
Yep.
Which is basically setting your session ID to nil. Is that like sufficient?
Yep. Depending how you have that's part of it, but then depending on how you have your current user method working in your application controller, you might have to do one other thing.
So user controller. Well, this creates the, this does the session ID. We're not destroying the user.
Yeah, so let's look at application controller. Yeah, so this is the place where you might have to do some extra work, right? Because you memoized at some point, you have this instance variable, right? That like will still have a value, even if you set the user ID to nil, because basically the memoization works as it checks at current user. If that current user has a value, everything on the right never runs, and it just returns you that current user. So you've got half of the problem correct, and then you still need to do one more thing.
Like that?
I would set it to nil, because the problem with this is still a valid value for memoization. Memoization still says, yeah, empty string, that's true. That's a truthy value over there. I'm gonna take that truthy value, which is the empty string.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So that should. Okay, so you got to take care of both of those. Okay, thank you. That was what I was trying to clarify.
For sure.
Thank you.
For sure. What's up, Hannah? You're still muted.
Sorry,
okay.
I'm still like on the gem, so I just got to hear where it's saying cannot load such file bcrypt.
Okay.
And I did some like Googling and stuff, and I just didn't know if I was like installing it wrong or what.
Did you add it to your gem file?
I like uncommented.
Yep.
Oh shit. What? Okay.
Yeah.
Now I feel really stupid.
No, that's okay. That's all right. Yeah, I always that's the thing when I'm going through this with y'all, I always start at the beginning. You'll still get it here, or well, okay, so this is a different error. So
right.
Yeah, so now you did a bundle exec, right? So it bundled before it ran the test and got that installed basically.
Right. Okay, cool. I thought I uncommented that, but I guess I did not. Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Of course, of course.
It's telling me to run this when I start my Rails server, the like Rails, bin Rails, DB migrate Rails in development. And when I do that, I just pulled this down from your copy this morning of the set list. And it's saying that there's an error with this file here. It's like the relation has already exists, but I don't see anything wrong with this file. It looks like exactly like it should be.
Yeah, so it's not actually the file that's wrong. It's basically like now that you cloned this repo down, you have two databases that are named the exact same. So basically because you clone this new repo and you have a set list on your machine, now you have both of these repos point to the same database. So that is where you get this already exists error. It's like, hey, we're not going to migrate this file and create this table because you already have a database here that is called set list. And you can kind of see, I'm trying to think of like where you can see your the name of your database. I can't remember how to do that, but there's a way that you can like see. Let me just Google it real quick. See database Rails.
So I deleted the old set list. So
Like
this
the
is
repo.
the repo.
Yeah, so you deleted the repo, but the database still exists, and like the PostgreSQL database still exists. So I mean, the simple way that you can get by this is you could do a rake db reset, which does like a drop, create, migrate basically, and then that'll work. But just like in the future, like this is something that you'll probably only run into here. But like, yeah, so now you can see like all of the migrations ran just fine. But this is like basically, that's the way that you can now, restart the database and get it to be like where you need to be. But the thing to remember is like if you want to have separate databases, then you would go, I don't even know how to do this, but I'm sure it's not like that crazy of a command, but you could just go and like say like, okay, like I want to name this database something different. And now I'll have two repos that are named similarly, but I'll have two separate databases.
Right, that's interesting. So where do these databases like live if they're not in the repo?
And so they live like with like PostgreSQL is your database, right? And so like Rails knows how to connect to your PostgreSQL database, but like a great way to look at the difference is if you look in Postico and you go like click on those tables in Postico, then you can see like, oh, that's a database, and that like where that lives is like on your machine. Yeah, so connect there. Cool. And now, yep, exactly. So these are like your actual databases, and yeah, that's basically where you can see like, okay, and it looks like to me that you have two different ones on here now, because you have this set list 2008, which is probably the one that just got reset and created, and it probably was before we did that reset, just set list development, set list test. So they're probably both pointing to that set list development, set list test, and then when we ran the reset, now it's doing set list 2008, set list 2008.
Wow. Okay, cool. Thank you. That's crazy.
Yeah. So this is where but like Postico is a great way for you to like visualize, okay, what databases do I have? And then you could also do this from the pSQL command line, like we've done sometimes in class where we're running pure SQL from the command line. If you enter the pSQL server from the command line, then you can also like view just the databases outside of like the Rails connection. And so I guess the takeaway here is, remember, your database is always going to be separate than your Rails app. They connect, but they're always separate.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Of course. All right. I don't know who is next, but looks like maybe Kate.
Yeah. I just have a couple questions. So I got through it all and got through writing the test for logging out.
Yep.
And have a few questions about that. Really just like my test works. And it's very simplistic, but I just want to check a few things. Before that, I want to ask the question, current user, with the whole helper method and all that sort of thing, it's in a controller. Why isn't it in a model?
Well, because we want to access it via our controller methods and via our views. So putting in an application controller is like a better place in the context of where we want to access like what the current user is. Like we want to access that that user we really want to hit the database just once. And if we put it in
Mhm.
our model, then we'd be hitting it every time, no matter what, right? Like we wouldn't be able to write
Okay.
that if statement. We wouldn't be able to memoize. And so basically, if we put it in our application controller, we can use an instance variable, memoize that instance variable. And now we hit the database once, the first time. And every time after that, we're just checking that value. And we're like, hey, give me that at current user.
Okay. Thank you.
For sure.
And then for my test, what I was reading, let me pull up my test. What I was reading was that there's not really a good way to mimic a session using capybaras. So you really, what I have is you create the user and you have them log in and then you log out.
Yep.
Is there a better way to do that, or is that just the way to do that?
That's kind of the only way to do that, because
Okay.
like there's like a way for you to pretend to be any type of user in RSpec, and then give yourself access to like whatever page that test needs you to have access to, so you don't have to go through the login logout process. However, when you're just testing logout functionality specifically, you want to do the login and then log out.
And then the log out.
Yeah.
Okay. I was making sure that there wasn't some other really easy way to do that. And then testing the log out, I really just tested that because there's the if statements on the show of certain things show up to non-logged in users.
Yep.
Log out shows to logged in users. I just looked for the presence of those things. Valid. Okay.
Yep, valid.
Okay.
Yeah, the other thing you could do is you could display a flash after you log out is like another thing you could do, but like looking for that when you have the if logic to show links if you have a current user or not, that's also totally good to go.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. That's all I got. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, Will, you're next.
Yeah, I just had a very quick question. It was simply your decision to make current user an instance variable versus having the method return current user. Is that just because it's fractionally faster to do an instance variable in that case versus?
Well, you want us to be able to have access to it all over the application. So that's the benefit of the instance variable, right? Like is now I can call at current user when I need to, as like part of destroying the session. I can reset at current user, and now my method will behave slightly differently than it would if at current user had a value in it. So, and
by making it a helper method, doesn't that in itself make it accessible, that method accessible anywhere?
It does, but we might also want to access the instance variable separate of the method at some point.
I'm having a hard time in my head distinguishing the difference between accessing the method versus accessing the instance variable.
Yeah, can we look at it on the screen? Yeah, can you share what you've got?
Sure. So I was just messing around. All right, can you see it?
Yep. Yeah, so I would make this, so the problem with this way is that you can never get access to the local variable current user. You can only get access to the method. So if you make this at current user instead, then when you need to access that value to change around the way that this method runs, then you can. Like now, so let's get rid of line 7. Yeah, so now if you need to say like somewhere like when you're logging out in your session destroy action, you probably need to like reset a couple values to make this method work differently. And it's probably like, oh, I need current user to be nil and I need session user ID to be nil. And I can do that now outside of this method anywhere I need to do that.
Okay.
And that's really the benefit, because like if you simply make the session user ID nil, that's not actually going to update this method, right? Because the memoization just checks for the instance variable and then says, oh yeah, the instance variable is here. And like, if it just checks for the instance variable is like persisting throughout the state of this application controller. So we need to like reset both, and because it's an instance variable, not a local variable, we have access to it now anywhere that inherits from application controller, and that's basically all of your controllers, right?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Cheryl, you're next.
Yeah, I'm getting an error on like the last step, and I apologize for background noise, that it's basically not finding the sorry, your credentials are bad.
Okay.
And then I tried like copying and pasting the code to make sure it was exactly the same. I'm not
Cool,
sure.
yeah. Gotcha. Okay, so let's look at your test here. Yeah, okay, got it. Yeah, so there's two things kind of happening here. So what you're doing with your, okay, so you're basically rendering this you're rendering the new, but that is not allowing the flash message to be shown, because when you're rendering, you're not resending the request. So this flash is like basically the flash is not being shown in this case. So if you did like a redirect to new, I bet that this would work.
So like right here, instead of render, say redirect, like just, or
Yeah, if you did that, I bet your flash message shows, as long as you've like added the flash.each to application.html.erb. Okay, so you haven't. Where do you have the flash message for the welcome?
I thought it was here.
Yep. So then where do you show the flash though? Like, you have to like iterate on the flash and do like a flash.each type message and then actually like display it somehow. Is that maybe in like your welcome controller by chance? Or your welcome view, I should say, your welcome index. Okay, so I'm thinking that the flash is like never being shown here, basically, which is a common problem that like y'all have run into in this lesson, because of like we haven't explicitly told you like, hey, this is how you display the flash, but you need a way to like in your view or in every view is the benefit of putting it in application.html.erb, like iterate and show flash messages. Does that make sense or no?
There's a lot of drilling, so I'm trying to mute and unmute, and it's hard to find on Zoom. So with putting it in application for all of them.
Yep. So if you put it in application, it's application.html.erb. So if you do a command P, yeah. Yep. And so okay, so you do have it here. Okay, cool. This is what I was hoping to see. Cool. So this is good. So now the problem is, let's look back at where this method's happening. Or where I should say where the logging in is happening. So I think it's in the login action of the session controller.
Session controller.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
So what's happening here is like you're displaying this error, but this is like just like a quirk in the flash. If you want this to happen, like even with you change it to redirect, but let's change it back to render. So you got two options here, and I would say the best. Yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure if that's the exact syntax. It might be like, I think it's flash.now, and then I don't think it's like that error. It might work like this, but Yeah, so I don't think this is the exact syntax, but yeah, you want to say a flash dot now, basically, before you render, because that'll like absolutely like make it happen on this request. But the render, basically when you're rendering, no request response cycle is happening. So like there's no like new request, so the flash just doesn't update, and the flash would be shown the next time, which is like not where you want it to happen. So you got two options. You either do the regular flash and you do a redirect, which like restarts the request response cycle, or you do the flash dot now and you do the render.
Okay. And I'll just have to see if this is the wrong syntax for error, probably.
I would look up flash dot now syntax like real quick,
Okay.
just so you can see what it looks like.
Oh, maybe it's alert.
Well, alert's going to be slightly different. Alert's going to work the same way as, yeah, cool.
Notice.
Yeah, and it's weird. The now only works for like specific types of flash messages, which is weird. Cool. So now it says expected defined text in username, password. Interesting. Okay. So it looks like I might be wrong on this one. And like even the rendering is not like is not allowing it to work, right? Like the rendering is not, it doesn't look like it's allowing this message to be shown.
And so when you say redirect, is this what you mean? Oh yeah, I have to do users.new or no, users dot, or I have to do login.
This is going to be sessions new.
Sessions.
Well, it depends on what your route, what you called your route. Cool. So it'll be a redirect to the login.
Login. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you need the /.
Let's forget those. Okay. Oh, come on.
Okay, so it's not happening. So let's look at this error. So it's like inspec 38, right? It says that.
Yeah.
Expect page to have content. Okay, so let's do a save and open page, because obviously like what we're doing is like not working. So let's just see. Cool, so no flash message there. So that tells me that like something's wrong with our flash. Well, let's make sure we're hitting this else, right? Like let's put a pry in there. Have you already like checked if you hit this else?
No.
Yeah, so we never hit it.
Didn't hit it. Okay.
Yeah, so I think what's happening here is like this if is actually like working somehow. And that is causing our issue, because like, so let's take out that save and open page just to be sure. And then let's run it. Yeah, okay. So this is a great example of trying to solve the wrong problem, right? Like I thought I assumed that we were hitting that else block. You assumed we were, and this now putting our pry there is a great way for us to say like, all right, it's actually not happening. So now what I would do is I would put it at the top of the create block, because now I'm like, am I even hitting this method as part of this test? And I would make sure I'm running this specific test, because that also could be an issue.
Oops. Wow. And this is in, I also wasn't sure what to call these, so I wasn't users. Oh, I have to call a specific test too, right? Not just the file.
Yeah, if you call this like test like via, or you could just put an X in front of that top it. Yeah, that works too. Cool. Yeah. So
Man,
we're
it's
not
not even
even
getting create.
we're not even hitting that. So now we got to look at our test, right? What happens when we click on I already have an account? What route is hit, right? Like where does that happen? And does that actually route to this create, or does it route somewhere else? Cool. So that looks like it's hitting the login, which also should then be hitting the sessions. Oh, you've got well, no, that looks all right. 2 sessions new. Got it. So that's why. So you're routing this get login to sessions new. So it's hitting that new action, and you're routing the post login to sessions create. So there's like 2 kind of things happening here, right? Like we have this get login is hitting our new route in the test. And so like everything works until the expect page to happen. But what we need to do is we need to have a separate route, basically a separate route for logging in and creating the session that we do for posting like from form data, right? Like, so we need to have a way to click on that link, display the form, enter information into the form. Then what we need to do is actually, so the step we're missing here is we're never submitting the new form. So we're never getting the post to happen from our new from the way that we have our tests set up, right? Because 33 and 34 fill in the username and password, but we never click on login, right? That's the big
Oh my
difference
God.
here. So
I
that we're
forgot to
not,
put that.
yeah, so we're not hitting that post.
So I just,
Now we hit our pry. So now I think what'll happen here, if you exit, is I think it'll run probably.
I can't, okay, so I just forgot to put the click on. Or,
Cool, yeah, but the problem is here now what we did is we redirected to the login.
okay.
And I don't know, I think I would change it now back to the render new, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, just because I forgot to put click on. Okay.
And that's
Sorry.
like this is part of it, right? Like there's a lot of steps, so we've got to like narrow down what step we're even on. And pry is a good way to do that, right? Like because now you're hitting so many within the request response cycle, right? You're hitting so many different things that it's very easy to get lost and think you're one place but actually be somewhere else. So that's like I think the thing to take away.
Yeah, well, that was helpful to think about it in different ways and find the actual problem versus I was just stuck on the one thing. So thank you, even though
Sure.
I feel like a bit of a bozo. Thank you.
No, you're totally okay. This is like, I mean, I am glad we walked through that together.
All right. Thank you.
For sure. What's up, Joshua?
Hey, I'm stuck much earlier in the process with the bcrypt gem.
Totally.
I'm seeing cannot load such file bcrypt even after uncommenting it and yeah, update or installing it.
Yeah. So let's try a bundle exec rspec here.
Can I show you something real fast? Just like the gem list, even after running gem install or bundle install, it's not showing up here. Is that
interesting? That is that tells me like, so this kind of happened to another student. I want to try something and then we'll
okay.
There's a definite solution and then there's like I want to try this bundle exec thing. So let's
okay. So bundle exec rspec.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that didn't work. So let's do this. Let's run, let's quit terminal altogether. Cool, let's restart it. I would just do an N for now. All right. Yeah, let's go wherever this lives at. All right, do a bundle install first. Cool. Now do just a regular RSpec. Yeah.
Oh, that's terribly frustrating.
That is terribly frustrating. And all I'll say is, like, I'm not sure what's happening, but it looks to me like the terminal session is going stale at some point, and bundle is not working the way that we expect. Because this happened to another student too, like the exact same thing. And I was like, all right, I don't know, like everything looks right to me, and like you haven't done anything wrong. And also sometimes the terminal sessions have just been like running too long, and something got you know, some of the path is like screwed up somewhere up the chain. I don't know where, but
Yeah.
like that's like a good lesson in, like, if you're pulling your hair out, it's like literally turn it off and on again and see like if that's the issue, because that is exactly what it is there. It's like something didn't go right. I'm not sure exactly when things started going wrong, but like the terminal session is stale, or the bundle like is not accessing like where we think it is. Like when we run bundle install, it's not doing it the way that we expect, and not installing the gems the correct way. Like I don't know where, but
Yeah.
that was an issue that I saw. So that, and it tells me it's got to be either bundle or the terminal, because when we did the bundle exec, that's like we know our spec is picking up the bundle first, and then if it's still not working at that point, it's like, all right, well, terminal like is not accessing the right spot, or the session is stale, and then or bundle is not like working properly in that session.
Okay, cool. Well, man, these lessons will stick because they're hard.
Yeah, that's the whole thing with us. This is why I think it's more useful for y'all to run through it and run into this shit.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, thanks for that.
Of course.
All right. See
See
ya.
ya.